had a very average life way back several years ago. We had a blended family, like you said. We thought everything was pretty much settled. Both of us had been married prior, so we thought, okay, now we have. At the time, we had three daughters and our little adopted son, Alex, from Russia. He was had only been with us for a year, and everything was running along fairly smoothly. Not perfectly, as we all know, nothing goes perfectly, but we had a pretty average life of a blended family. And then one day in 1998, a few days after Christmas, we went on a family vacation and we witnessed the accident that took our oldest daughter's life. And that was the day that shook everything for us. Everything changed after that. I thought before she passed away that if I did my part, if I was a good Christian little girl and did what I was supposed to, then everything should go smoothly. I know that's theologically not sound now, but at the time, my theology was based on comfort. And I felt like God wanted me to be comfortable. God wanted me to be happy. And so I thought nothing bad would ever happen to us. And now I know bad things happen to all of us. The righteous, the unrighteous, rain falls on all of us. And we have those, we all have challenges, and no one is immune to grief. Um, but when our daughter Nicole passed away in that accident, everything changed for us. It shook the faith that I thought I had. I had to question and grow through that time. I had to realize that God wasn't going to take away my pain, but He was going to carry me through my pain. And we walked through that as a family, and it was at times very messy. A lot of it was confusing, and there was times of anger, but we walked through it together and came out the other side. And then about 10 years ago, I really felt it on my heart that since God had carried me through this pain, that it would be that He was prompting me to share my story with other people, to help other people walk through their pain, because we all have trauma, and grief is grief, and grief comes in all different kinds of forms. But He doesn't take the grief away from us because we live in a fallen world, but He does carry us through. So in that, I wrote my book, Victorious Heart, and it's a story about our grief journey, but it's not just the story about our grief. It's the story of how God carried us through. And my hope is that it's a guidebook for those people walking through grief.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of the synopsis of how we got to where we are now.
That is beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing, because I know that it's a lot to be able to open up and to really be able to express all of that, the trauma, the pain, the emotions, the authenticity of everything you were experiencing at the time. And it's raw. And I know for a lot of people to experience something like that, when something, the first experience of it happening is like there's no end to it. They don't see them ever getting past that moment. Can you share what that looks like and how you were able to see God carrying you through those moments?
That's a great question, because in the beginning, I did not see an end. I really did feel like I would not survive my pain. And grief is kind of one of those things that you see your progress in hindsight more than in the future. Uh, at the time, I didn't even feel like I was making progress. But every day, so now looking back, I can see, oh my goodness, look what the Lord has done. This is a miracle. It is truly a miracle how He picked me up and carried me. But it would be in small little incremental things. My first thing was I was determined to try to capture the big reason why, and why God allowed this to happen. And through that, because I thought if I could establish why, then it would take away some of my pain. And what He showed me is that my mind and my spirit is not large enough to contain His why. uh, and he doesn't owe me an answer anyway. But what he did show me is there were so many blessings on the way, and so many things that he brought along that brought beauty in our pain. So each day it was a step into us being willing to step into our pain, and sometimes that meant just getting out of bed. That meant getting the kids to school, feeding the family. It's super simple things. Somebody might look at me on this side of grief and say, well, it must not have been that bad because, you're doing okay. You have a book, you have other kids. I've heard all of those things. But those days were the darkest, most desperate days of my life. But every day there was a little bit of movement forward and a little bit of movement forward. And I can look back now and say, I know that he carried me through that because it was impossible for me. It was impossible for our other kids that were just struggling. And for my husband, who he felt like he was the protector of the family. And why couldn't he protect our daughter? Why couldn't he take care of this situation? That was his job, he felt like. And so his grief was different than mine. Our grief journeys were completely different. We definitely had to learn to respect each other's way that we learned to walk through that.
You just touched on something so powerful right there, because I don't think people understand that there's so many dynamics going on. And what I shared with you earlier, I had to learn that I wasn't the only one that was experiencing something, you
Hmm.
know? And so, can you talk about what that looked like and how you were able to to recognize that? To recognize that, yeah, I am experiencing grief, but my husband is too. Because I want to say that most of the time, what I've seen or what you hear is that when um, people lose a child, it tears the marriage apart. And I think it's because of what you're about to talk about. We don't know how to share in those different experiences. So, can you bring some insight to that for us?
I think that is very important. Our pastor had told us in the beginning weeks that we needed to really be careful to protect our marriage. So we had wise counsel, and he said, I know that you're taking care of all of these other people, especially with the kids, but you need to protect your marriage. And through that, we would both have frustrations with each other because he grieved in a different way than I grieved, and sometimes I would perceive that he didn't care or that it wasn't affecting him, and he might think that I was reacting in a strong way. So what we had to do is talk about it. And we had to talk. I would have to explain to him, this is how I'm feeling. And then he realized that it was okay that we felt different. We both had to realize that it was okay that we grieved in a different way. My husband is a fixer. A lot of guys are fixers. So he wanted to fix me. He wanted to say something to fix my pain, right? Yeah. And I'm like, I you can't fix me. Nobody can fix me.
Yeah.
The Lord ultimately brought healing, but nobody was going to fix the pain. And so he came to realize that he couldn't fix me. And I came to realize that he needed to work through some of these things. He saw a lot of things when Nicole's accident happened close up. He ended up giving her CPR. He ended up ministering to her physically up close and personal, where I was further back. And so he needed to process through some of that stuff, but I couldn't hear it. So we also realized he had to protect my heart because we are so visual. I did not want to have some of those things into my mind that it was hard and it was difficult that he had to experience those and work through those in his mind. But so he learned that he needed to talk to maybe some other guys, our pastor, some of his friends, about those details that bothered him that he witnessed.
Hmm.
And so he learned to protect my heart in that way. And we just learned I am a feeler. I like to look at pictures. I like to, really think about Nicole when she was alive. I need to go through those processes. Well, he does too. He's more of, if he can do something, he needs to work it out. And so we had to really learn that. In addition to that, we had to learn how each one of our kids handled the grief differently. Lisa was a year younger than Nicole, and they were best friends. They shared a room, they shared secrets, they were buddies. Where Megan was 11, she witnessed the accident. She um, had to walk through in a different way. And then again, our youngest at the time, he was just newly adopted, 5, from Russia. And so he had a whole nother experience about that. So we had to learn to walk through that. There are things that I wish I had done differently, because grief is messy, relationships are messy. But I do feel like the Lord has restored a lot that was lost. And he has brought healing in ways that I never could imagine at the time.
Absolutely. So I want to ask you if it's okay to experience something like that. It has to affect your mental and your psyche and just do a lot. What kind of mind frame did it put you in, and what did that look like for you and your family?
I think at the time we were just surviving, just trying to make sense of it. What I didn't realize is how much that trauma we take into our bodies, and how much of that trauma affects us physically. Where in the beginning, I didn't even realize, the pressure on my chest. I'm like, what is going on with my body? But it was grief sitting in my chest. And I think even until recently, and it's been several years, and recently working through that um, process of being able to mindfully embrace that pain, and that means embracing it in different stages. So in the beginning, we're just trying to take care of the early, getting to the practical parts of life. Even things about Nicole, she was supposed to graduate high school that year, so there were things that we needed to handle with the school, with her practical things. She showed horses, so we had to do those things. So that was a mental part of um, letting go of those things, and letting go of those dreams that we had for her. I didn't even realize it at the time of how much it affected us physically. At the time too, I thought, well, I don't know how to grieve. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So I went and sought out the counsel of a Christian therapist, and she was great. And she, first of all, let me know there is no right or wrong way to grieve. We all, again, are individuals. The Lord has created us so uniquely. So why wouldn't we grieve uniquely? Why do all of our memories of our loved ones have to be cookie cutter of what everybody else remembers? We all grieve differently, and we all heal differently. And so she was able to kind of walk me through those things. And then some of the kids actually saw a counselor as well through that process. And still a growing thing, as they are now. All my kids are adults. I have had to let them go in a different way. That's a different type of grief.
Hmm.
And grief, it can be so ambiguous. It can be the tangible losing of someone to death, or like we spoke earlier, it can be grief, because of separation. It can be grief because of a prodigal, or someone who walks away from the family or a relationship. So we had to learn to deal with those things physically. And I've had, even lately, had to let those things, because realizing that my body, a lot of that is still in my body. And that's how I've held on to it. A lot of it, I haven't processed it. So we
Yeah.
have to process it. We have to be mindful. We have to be intentional to embrace the pain, and to work through each one of those steps. And it's a long process of healing.
How long how long did it take you to decide that I need to embrace this and do something about it? because I'm just saying that for those who may be suffering right now and that may have been suffering for a long time. Because I think about Paula Dean, who said she's in the bed for 10 years.
Yeah, yeah.
10 years before she decided that, okay, I need to get up and do something. And some people say, hey, it was a month. I mean, what did that process look like for you to get there?
And that is a good point. We all kind of have a different process, but for me, it was about 6 months in, because it took about 6 months for me to feel like I could actually stand on my feet.
Hmm.
And I know that those were little baby steps of just working through life. But about 6 months in, I realized, okay, I'm going to have to do some work here. And it would and that's when I started seeing the counselor, and it was so freeing to just, number one, when we're hurting, we don't like to hurt those around us. And when you pay a therapist, you're paying them to listen to you. And
Yes.
they are, and there's no judgment. There's no, she did not judge me on, oh, aren't you over this yet? Or, if I screamed, if I if I was angry, whatever it was, I could process with her.
Hmm.
And so I needed to start doing that work then. Um, but even earlier, I realized I'm going to have to start doing some things to take care of my mind, which for me was putting good things in my mind. That was earlier, making sure that I had to protect my mind, because my mind wanted to go to the accident, to
Hmm.
what I did see. And the Lord kept reminding me, think on the things that are true, lovely, noble, good, all of those things, which was Nicole's life and her impact here on this earth. And then, of course, because I believe that she's in heaven and I'm going to see her again, to realize that she's more alive than I am right now. And and we're going to experience that as well. But it was a journey of, you know, about 6 months, it was a stint of therapy. And then I had to practice. I'm one who has to soak in what I'm learning. So I soak in, I try to practice what I'm learning. I try to practice putting those positive, and when I say positive, I don't mean Pollyanna ethereal thoughts. I could find something always to be thankful for. And that's what I mean when I say positive, because that's an important thing. Because we can't conjure, when you're in grief, when you're in deep sorrow, you cannot conjure up good feelings,
Mm.
fuzzy, warm feelings, because they're not there. But you can be thankful. I can be thankful for those days that I had with Nicole. I can be thankful for the friends, the people that were around me, that surrounded me. And that's kind of a side note too. It's important to develop those relationships. It's important to, set that up in our lives, to have that group of people that will come alongside you, because you're going to need them. At one point in our lives, we're all going to need those people.
Absolutely. So when you go through something like that, it is not easy to hear people try to console you.
Yeah,
And I know that we often find ourselves hearing strange things because it keeps resonating with me when you said people were saying, well, oh, you're strong. It must not have been that bad. That's painful.
it
That's
is.
hurtful. But
Yeah.
no, what you're seeing is what God has done and how he reconstructed me. Because truthfully, if you see what's underlying, then you would see all the hurt and the pain. But people, I don't think, understand just what God can do. And when they see you, they're not seeing what you went through, but they see what God, like you said, has carried you through. And so when someone is in the midst of the grieving process and they see someone that's made it through it, they often think that, well, you're strong and you've got this and you've got that, and and I just, I'm not like that. I'm not built that way or whatever. You know, can
Mhm.
you speak to that?
Yeah, and that is a really good point. And it is really easy to look at someone and not understand. When you look at someone at this place, whatever that place is, whatever situation they may have gone through, it's easy to romanticize that and think, oh, well, they, like you said, they're strong, I'm not like that. But let me tell you, I am without a doubt, one of the wimpiest people around. Now, you might say, no, you wrote a book, you did all that. Though that's all by the grace of God.
Come on.
I wish words could explain how dark my days were. I wish words could explain how I felt hopeless. I felt defeated. I felt like there was no way out. And it's hard for me to explain that. But people going through grief just know that. But
Mm,
just also know that on this side, the Lord carried me. It is miraculous. And so, and I know I have really come to understand anything that people say to me, trying to comfort me, that's just what they're doing. They're not trying to be cruel. So it's important on this side of it for any of us that are on this side of it to offer grace to
mhm.
that, because people don't know what to say. Before this happened, and even still, I did not know what to say when somebody was hurting. Your first instinct is to run and stay far away from that pain because you do not want to inflict
Yeah.
more pain. But I can say those brave souls that did come and they walked in, they stepped into my grief with me. They showed up and they showed up
Take your time. Take your
and
time.
and they put their arms around me in my ugliness, in my hopelessness, and they loved on me.
Mm,
And some of them said things that were probably not the best things, but they meant good and they showed up because they loved me. And I think that that's so important for us to realize when someone is hurting, just show up
yeah.
and understand back to the fixing. You're not going to say any words that's going to fix them
Absolutely.
because their pain is their pain and but they don't need somebody to fix their pain. They need somebody to step into it with them and walk with them arm in arm.
Show up.
Sometimes that's in the mud and we're bloody, we're broken, we're sorrowful, but somebody will walk through it. And we know on the outside, and you know what the coolest thing is, those people who walked, they're witnesses of
Yeah.
what God did. They're witnesses, and sometimes they're blown away. Like, okay, I saw it, I know, and they're witnesses to what God did.
Absolutely. We've got a question. Janice, Janet Coates King wants to know, did you ever feel as if you had made a breakthrough? And I was going to ask this as well, only to find yourself back where you started mentally.
Oh, fantastic question. I was really hard on myself when I felt like went backwards. I would be going along thinking, oh man, I'm making really good progress. I haven't maybe cried for 10 minutes or whatever. Sometimes it felt like 10 minutes. And then only a smell would hit me.
Mm,
Or, because our sense, our senses, they do really bring back those memories. So maybe a scent that reminded me of Nicole, or a song might play on the radio, and I would be hit on the side of the face, and I would get so discouraged, thinking, "Oh, I've come so far, and here now I'm starting over." But it's important to realize that's just part of the journey. That grief isn't this linear. It's not this, right? It's like this, and then
mm,
sometimes it's like that, and it's up and down, but it's not linear. But every time you're growing a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more.
yeah. Now, you said something earlier that really made me think about something because you said about being in a dark place. And I was sharing with my mother one day, and I said, people know where they are, but it's up to them to have to come out of that. And like you said, sometimes people try to fix and they want to help and they want to try to get you out of that place, but only you can get yourself from that place. And I remember thinking back to, I was in this dark place, but I would leave here and everybody would see this happy, cheery, smiley person. Nobody knew how dark of a place I was in, but it was turmoil just trying to keep it up that I'm just great, and as soon as I get in the house I'd be like, oh,
Yeah.
it would take sometimes just have to sit in the car just to brace myself for what I had to face next. And so one day I just decided that this is the darkest, deepest place because I used to be like so joyous and happy. And I'm like, you know what? I don't know how people find themselves in that spot. And now I recognize and understand why I had to go through some things that I had to go through, especially in ministry where I'm at now. But once I got to that spot, I was like, wow. And it was dark and it was devastating. And some days I actually liked being there because it felt comfortable.
Yeah.
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 But in order to get out of it, like you said, I had to start to feed myself the good words and I had to start to slowly step out of the darkness because there was still light there. I just kept on walking away from it. Um it takes time to get to that place.
Hmm.
And we need that support system to get us to that place. But I know that there's people out there that can put on a brave face and people don't know that they're dying inside, that they're hurting, that they're screaming out, that they're going through something because it seems like they're in a good place.
Hmm.
How do the supporters, can you speak to that? How can the supporters keep check to make sure that not that they're trying to pull them out of it, but just to be there and help them to know that I'm here for you. Because sometimes even in that dark place, you feel like nobody's really here for me. They don't get it. They don't understand because they think I'm okay. But how do the supporters or the caregivers on the other side, how can they recognize that you're just putting on a brave face, but there's really something else going on there?
I believe that that's where it comes to forming those relationships ahead of time. I mean, it's not like you're forming those relationships to prepare you for the bad thing, but we all go through things. And surround yourself with those people who will speak truth into your life. I had a few people and they would, so how's it going, Kim? Oh, good. I'm doing great. And they would, some of them, just a small group, would put their hands gently on my shoulders and make me look at them and say, no, how are you really doing? And it's hard to fake it through that. It's hard to. And they would keep showing up and they understood that maybe I wasn't ready to bring all of that darkness out or come completely out of it because, well, you made a great point. Sometimes the darkness is comfortable because we have this contrast in our lives. If we risk the light, we're going to risk more pain. So we know when we're in that place, if we start walking out, it's kind of a dull pain down there in the dark, but in the light, it's a sharp. We risk opening ourselves up. We risk feeling those feelings when we are hurting. Once you start talking and those tears start flowing, sometimes it's like the dam that breaks, and you just got to let it go.
Yeah.
So we know that, and so it's easy to stay in the comfortable, painful place that's not so sharp. But to be able to have those people that will step in and just say, how's your heart? How's your heart doing? Asking me, I've had people ask me, well, how are you feeling about, and they will be specific, how are you feeling about Nicole's birthday coming up? How are you feeling about Christmas without Nicole or without your mom or whatever the case is? Or they might even ask me, because they know me, how did that make you feel when, Nicole's best friend got married? So make sure we have people that are willing to speak truth into our lives. And sometimes truth is hard. It doesn't mean you come down hard on somebody. And there will be a time you just keep asking and keep asking. And when they're ready, they know that you're the person because you've been there.
Yeah.
And they will know. And don't be offended if they say, you know what, I don't want to share. I don't want to share right now. We have to be tough enough to go, okay, I love you and I'm here whenever you're ready.
Yeah.
Just keep being there, keep being there. And then when it's time, there will be a time. Just remind them that you're loved, that you're not destined to be in that spot. And I'm praying for you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that because I think it's good points because a lot of times, like you said, the supporters don't know how to really support and they want to, but they feel like I don't know what to say. I don't know how to help you. I don't know what to do. And then they don't want to give you the truth because they don't want to offend you or hurt you
Yeah.
anymore. And I
Yeah.
believe that the true people in your life know you well enough to know that they can speak truth to you, and it's going to hit you where it needs to hit you, and eventually it's going to bring you out of that dark place.
Mhm.
And allowing you that time to be able to be there, but not leaving you there. See, that's what I was saying.
Yeah.
We meet people where they are, but we can't just walk off and leave them there. Like you said, if we got to go through the trenches and bloody and sweat and tears or whatever,
Oh,
if I got to pull you out by the toe, we're getting out of here,
yeah,
right?
I'm not walking away. To
Yeah.
just know, I remember one time I was laying on my mom's floor, and it was, I think it was a couple of days after Nicole had passed, and I didn't want to talk to anybody. And I am, like you said about yourself, being joyful, and I am a people person. I typically in the past, but I didn't want to have anything to do with anybody. I didn't know what to say. I just felt like I had been run over by a truck. And I was laying on the floor, and somebody, one of my friends, and I don't know who she was, I cannot even remember to this day, but she came in and scooted and put my head on her lap, and she just petted my head. She just ran her fingers through my hair, didn't say a word. That day, that was a lifeline for me because I didn't know what to say. If somebody were to ask me how I was feeling, I have no idea. I'm flat. I can't do anything. So go and step in there and step with them, just like you said, and don't leave. I'm
Yes.
not leaving. I'm not leaving you. We can just sit here. Just sit with them, whatever that looks like.
So now let's talk about the book and how you brought it to life, because actually your daughter is living through this book, and you're healing other people with her. And a friend once told me, what happens to you happens for you to help others. And sometimes when we're
Mhm.
going through something, we're like, how is this helping me to help
Right.
somebody else?
Right.
But every time I know that I'm speaking to someone and it seems like I'm helping them, truthfully, I find out it's helping me to heal a little bit more, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about like how you got to that point of, let's do this because somebody needs to be healed in this way,
Mhm.
and you understand what that looks like.
Mm. I had one of the gals that led Bible study at the church I went to. I had signed up for a Bible study before Nicole passed away. So signed up for it a few months in advance, and she had been bugging me to join the Bible study, join the Bible study. I'm like, So Nicole had passed away, and I saw her. Her name's Lori, and I saw her in the hall at church. And she goes, "You're going to still come to my Bible study, aren't you?" I'm like, I don't know. I had another friend with me, and I said, "I don't know. I don't know if I'm up to it." And she said, "Kim, you need to use your pain." Well,
Mm.
my friend next to me was offended, but I honestly, that put a little seed in my heart. Use your pain. And she shared with me how that would bring healing, as a conduit. My pain would be a conduit to help other people. And through processing and through healing, the Lord started putting the book on my heart. And I wrote I wrote basically the basic story, and I felt like through the advice of others and through the Lord prompting me, he was prompting me to go deeper and tell more of our story and more of the pain, because you have to go there, and I didn't want to go there. It was painful. But what I realized is that did bring healing to me, but it also brought healing to others. And the book is the book is named Victorious Heart, because Nicole's name means victorious heart. And so I thought, what better way to describe that girl? She lived victoriously. She loved unconditionally. She didn't judge anyone. She was this little wild, free person. And I want to live like that. And when you're in grief, you don't feel like you're victorious is the furthest thing from your mind. But I realized, no, the Lord doesn't want us to just survive these days. He wants us to be victorious, and he will bring victory in our pain, and that he comforts us so we can comfort others. So the book has been a big healing process for me, but my hope is that it brings healing to other people. It's not just our story about grief, but it's just I've got a lot of things in there that I hope will help people realize they're not alone, and
Yeah,
that they can walk through victorious as well.
absolutely. Um, Out of everything that you've learned through this experience, what have you held on to the most as far as um, what you have taken away from this experience?
Oh, there's so much. Um, but I would say that before, if I saw someone in grief, I thought, well, you heal and you go back to back to the way you were, fully restored to the way you were. But what I've come to know is we don't go back to the way we were before. It's like if you lose a limb, you have to learn to walk in a new way. And so, but that's not a bad thing. That's just part that shows the part of me that's missing. There's a huge part of me that's missing, and we do not get fully restored until we're in heaven. Once we're on the other side, we're restored, and we're restored in a perfect way that only the Lord can see. And on this earth, we're going to walk with limps. We're going to, we are by the time we go to heaven, we're going to be if we're going to be battle scarred. We're going to carry wounds, we're going to carry scars, but that's okay, because in that restoration he brings so much beauty. There's so much beauty in the way the Lord restores.
Absolutely. So I want to say this because we know that the Lord has made us in his sight, in his image, and he can make all things new. And we think that he adds no sorrow and
Mm,
and when we think about that, we're like, well, that can't be God doing this or whatever. But what if God wasn't in your life? What do you think this
mm.
would look
It would look I probably wouldn't have survived. Our family would have been broken. My husband and I probably wouldn't have been married still, and we wouldn't have adopted two more sons, uh, and fostered kids, and had the courage to open our hearts again to the risk of love. And things would look entirely different, and I would be defeated and hopeless. I know that he has done great things, things that blow me away even in hindsight now. I sometimes I can't even hardly take it in what he has done, the beauty that he has brought about through this.
like? I don't think people understand that the difference is God.
Mhm.
You can do it with him or you can do it without him.
Mhm.
And the difference is he's going to carry you through.
Yeah.
He's going to help you get over those
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. And scripture talks about in Thessalonians how we grieve with hope. Well, scripture doesn't deny that we grieve. Grief is not ungodly.
Hmm.
Grief is not, you know, that I'm walking away from the Lord. Although sometimes I was really mad at him, and he can handle that. And he did not turn away from my pain. He did not. He walked right in, like you said. He doesn't have sorrow. Man, he walks with us. Talk about walking with us. He weeps with us. He grieves with us. This isn't his design. This is a broken world.
Oh,
But I can't do it without him.
Kim, that was so powerful because I thought about I had told my therapist, I said, I have to confess to something and I'm angry and I'm mad at God. And I said, and I'm mad at myself for being mad at God.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I shouldn't be mad at God because he can do whatever he wants. And I know he's not doing this, but he's not making it stop.
Right.
I'm mad at him because he's not giving me what I want.
Right.
You
He's
know,
not fixing this. Yeah,
I want him to
exactly.
change this situation and I want him to do what I
Yeah.
want. because he said
Yeah.
if I ask him for anything, he'll give me what I want. And
Mhm.
I'm like, but how do I know he's not giving me what I need?
Mhm.
I had to learn that in that moment that, okay, God isn't trying to hurt you. He's not
Mm-mm.
trying to cause you pain. He's not trying to
Right.
cause you trouble. And he's okay that you're mad at him. He gets it that you're upset.
Mhm. Yeah.
He still loves you and he's gonna get you through it. And when you
Right.
get over your little self, you'll be
Yeah.
okay right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I did. And I thought about what you said too, like how in the Bible they grieved and they lamented, they tore their clothes and they were
Yeah.
sorrowful. And even Jesus wept,
Right.
right?
He wept. And he knew what was going to happen. He knew that he was going to bring Lazarus back. But in that, he wept. He was brokenhearted at death, at the pain of his friends, at what all of that was. He hurt because of that. And he hurt with them. And that's the example to me. He wept with those sisters who had lost their brother. And he walked into that, and he wasn't afraid of their pain.
Kim, you know what you just said? You said he knew that he was gonna bring Lazarus back.
Mhm.
You said that your daughter is in heaven living more life than you are right now.
Right.
He already knows our end in the beginning,
Yeah.
right? So what are we upset about?
Exactly.
But the thing
Yeah.
is, we have to go through these processes, and we forget that we should be joyous and excited that absent from the body is present with the Lord. And you
Mhm.
know the life that your child lived, and you know that she is in a good place.
Mhm.
And we get upset and we get mad because we want to bring them back, but they don't want to come back when they're
No, she would be I know she loved me, but she
right
would
now.
not want, yeah, she would not want to be back here for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
And it's so true. That's why we grieve with hope. So yeah, we're sad. Yeah, it hurts. Yeah, the separation is horrible, and I hate it. I still hate it. I want to see her. But he has a job for us to do while we are here. And really, when we get to heaven, it's a vapor. It's like nothing. So if we can keep that in our minds, keep that forward. He says, again, think about the things that are true, noble, lovely, good, all of those things. He wants us to look forward, to understand that this is not all there is. What we see is not all there is.
yeah.
There's
I
so much
know
more.
when people hear death, they take it so hard and they get so upset and they think
Hmm.
that it's just the end. But no, that's when the beginning starts.
Hmm.
And we should be joyous, but it's confusing sometimes to us
Yeah.
as human beings in the flesh because our flesh is
Yeah.
terrible to us, right?
Yeah.
And our
Yeah.
flesh wants what it wants at that
Yeah.
time. And
Yeah.
so if we can understand how to walk in the spirit and understand what God has for us is so much greater than
Right.
what we could imagine, then that is the hope in the Lord that we can find. So I thank you so much for
Yeah.
bringing that to light because I think when we look at it and we're taught because see we when I was growing up I went to a lot of funerals. I've seen a lot of death and then I
Hmm.
got out of high school. I went into healthcare and the first thing I had to do was work with older people and they were dying and so I saw it all the time and nobody ever taught you though the on earth process of it. You know what I'm saying? We
Yeah.
I think about the afterlife and how great that'll be, but nobody understands this surface level earthly process and we
Hmm.
get confused as, well, why does God take us away? Well, we know that these are things that's going to happen.
Hmm.
He tells us all these things, but he
Right.
says, even if you live, I mean, even if you die, you live in me, right?
Right.
So that's what our hope is in the Lord, that we live a victorious life through Christ and that
Hmm.
we show others what that looks like. And
Hmm.
we try to have an understanding and we don't try to fix people. That's not our job, like you said.
Right.
We don't try to change people. We don't try to judge people. But the opportunity that we have right here and right now is to love one another. And we are let
Hmm.
slip through our fingers daily.
Oh, it's so true. It's so true because it's so easy to get caught up in all of this, all of our own little thing. And then, but all we have to do is just focus our eyes outward. There's hurting people, there's struggling people, there's people that just need just eye contact, love, support. Uh, and and what we don't realize is then that actually feeds our souls even more because the more we're here like this, the more dried up and desperate we become. But when we look out and love others, that's that's where our purpose lies.
Absolutely. I'm going to give you an opportunity to share whatever it is more that you would like to share about your book. But before I get there, I want to ask you this about you and your husband's grieving process, because I think that people don't get this too. When you maybe came to a place where you were like, okay, I'm good, and maybe he wasn't. Now, can you help someone to understand how to help the other one through that, or to understand that they're not there yet? Or, everybody, so what did that look like for you and your husband? Did you arrive at the place at the same time? Or
Mm. No, no, and that is a fantastic question because we grieve differently. We grieve at a different timeline, and so we have both. It's like this. I would go forward and I'd be in a maybe a further along place and he would be here. And then and so we would just have to talk through it and grace, give each other the grace to be whoever we need to be. And sometimes that means ranting. And he has listened to me rant when he was in a good place. He's feeling all happy and chipper. And I'm just like, no, this is not fair. Like, depending on what's going on, this is not fair that, Nicole is not here, or this is not fair that whatever. And he'd say, no, it's not fair. And he wouldn't try to talk me out of, well, actually, it is fair or whatever. He just listened to me. And so I think that it's important that we listen to each other and try to understand that and not take it personal, because sometimes grief brings out a rough side of us. And we have to realize I might be being rough or he might be being rough, not in a mean way towards each other, but just towards life. And that I need to not let my feelings get hurt. Just let him be who he is. And then eventually now I would say we have come to this place that is a beautiful place to just we can talk about this and talk about Nicole and talk about memories at more of a equal is not the really correct word, but more at a place where we understand each other. And so just give each other grace, don't judge, and allow your spouse or the close ones in your family to just walk the road that they need to walk, and be understanding in that.
all right. So before we jump off of here, if there's anything else that you would like to share about Nicole, or that you would like people to know about your book, and then tell them, the audience, how to find you and your book, and how to engage with you and your website, and to get all your phenomenal information so they can continue through their process.
Okay. I want to encourage anyone walking in grief to know that you're not alone and you're going to make it. You don't feel like you're going to make it, but you're going to make it. Every day you're going to get a little stronger. But the key is to give your pain to God every single day. And it's even more than every day, moment by moment. You may not feel brave, you may not feel strong, but he is strong enough to carry us through it. So just know he is going to bring beautiful things within this pain. Just continue to give it to him. And the book is Victorious Heart. I just happen to have one right here. You can get it wherever books are sold. Amazon um, has it. Anywhere that you can buy a book, you can usually get it. Uh, I have a website. It's wildthevictoriousheart.com. And I also have a link for the book there. I write a monthly blog that brings encouragement. You can also contact me through that. There's a place to contact me. I try to get back to everyone as soon as I can, usually within a couple of days. So I'd love to hear your story, and just chat about what you're walking through.
Absolutely. Well, Kim, I thank you so much for taking the time to be here today and for showing us how to show up in our grief.
Mm.
Because I think that sometimes we try to abandon ourselves
Oh,
in
yeah.
those moments, and we try to hide or we try to pretend like
Mhm.
it's not happening and we try to put on a brave face. But it's okay to hurt. It's okay to feel the pain. It's okay
Mm.
to go through it. It's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
It's a process, but
Mhm.
we don't have to stay there
Yeah.
because there's hope out there and we're not alone. So thank you so much for helping us to know that there's hope and healing in the midst of grief. And you are a beautiful soul, and just everything that you have shared, and just I'm a visual person, so I'm like I can visualize like your family and just the love and everything that is going on around you. And so
Mm.
are you and your husband empty nesters now?
Yes, we are empty nesters, and we have a bunch of little grandkids. They were with me all day today,
Yeah.
and boy, it's such a blessing. So yeah, we're getting to now move into a new phase, and
Yeah.
it's fun. It's fun.
So now it's like you're starting all over and dating again
Yeah,
and learning each other again. So that's beautiful.
exactly. It's great.
So I'm grateful to know you and I'm grateful to have you on
Mm.
tonight. And you are definitely mindful of your intentions and you are nurturing and driving your business. And when I say your business, I don't necessarily mean a business that is brick and mortar or
Right.
internet or whatever. I mean, your life is your business.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is the whole of who we are. And if that breaks down your body, your mind, your soul, we have nothing. You have
Exactly.
to continuously be mindful, to be intentional to nurture and drive our
Mm.
business because that's what God gave us and we have to be
Mhm.
about his business, right? So
Exactly. Well
remember,
said.
remember everybody, thank you for watching. Remember you were created with a purpose and God wants you to be great because he created you in his image. So be grateful and be great in God. Thank you so much for hanging out with me all day today. It has been a blessing. I'm excited and I'm so happy to end on this note, especially with Peacock.
There you go.
I got two peacocks hanging on my wall in the kitchen. It's so funny. I used to do my recordings right in front of it. But you have been such a blessing, and I'm just grateful to have you. So I'm gonna get us out of here, but just hang on for just a second so I can sign you off. But thank you for being here tonight. And there will be a link on our website. I'm still transferring from my old website. I revamped my website, but I have what's called a network of friends. And everybody that I've been able to interview that has been on the podcast, that have podcasts or whatever, or different levels that people you might need to network with, they're all able to be connected with. And so you'll be one of those people, and then they'll be able to link with you to get your book or to get contact with you as well. And then you have access to this broadcast, and you'll also have access to the podcast when it goes live. And you can do whatever you want with it. You can market it any way you want. That's what I give all my guests the opportunity to do. I just say continue to be kind and love others and tell people who Jesus is because everybody ought to know. Have a good
Yeah.
night, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Thank you. I am gonna hit that.